Hi, here we are again. We're ready for Module 7. Let's go to, that means we're at weeks 12 and 13. As was the case in the last module, I already have preloaded a couple of videos which you should review before you get started and after you've read the chapter. Walks you through doing a multi-page form, which sometimes causes some problems, and adding buttons to forms. So this is a very fun module. You'll like the output that you get from this. There are no data files here. We'll still be working with the same databases, so you'll be using what you finished in number 6 to complete in module 6 to complete module 7. I think we actually do change in module 8. One thing to note, in addition to the big changes, nothing new added except that the exam is due on Thursday. It's due on Thursday instead of the Sunday, because our holiday, your spring break and Easter break begins, and I don't want you to have to do anything during your break. So the exam is due earlier. So keep that in mind. You have to get that done. Yeah, let's see. So basically in this module, you're going to be, as I said, you'll be making some multi-page forms. You'll also be adding some jazzy formatting features and using the format painter. Many of you may have already taken Word and Excel and are familiar with the format painter. It's a great tool. You'll be adding some combo boxes that create lists, that have lists and can search, that you can use to search. You'll be adding command buttons. Those always have the underlying macro. We'll be getting into that in the next chapter, in the next module. You'll be making changes to some of the buttons. You'll be adding a calculated field just like you have been for the last 3 or 4 modules. You'll be adding a subform. The difference is between this and module 5 is you'll be using the design view, just as you did with for the reports in module 6. You'll be using the design view instead of the layout view. You're going to be inserting a chart and then making some edits to that and formatting charts. So it's a pretty intense chapter. Make sure you look. It begins on AC 361. If you look on 362, it'll give you an idea of what you're going to create for this project. Hold on just a minute. One thing I do want to mention, the account view and update form that you'll be creating, actually they refer to it as 2 different forms in here, but the account view and update form, let me look back at the document that I gave you guys with the check sheet. Let's take a look at that right quick. Yeah, it's here. Alright, let's take a look at it right quick. Because they refer to it under 2 different names, it sometimes is confusing for students. So let's go down to module 7. Account master form. Let's see. Yeah, I did make a note. You see where it says account master form? They refer to it as an account master form. I put an asterisk there to indicate that the form has a caption property of account view and update form. So the images that you see on page AC 362 say at the top account view and update form. That is the caption. The actual form is called the account master form. So again, these check sheets, the ones that are white are the ones that you need to complete. So those are all the things we'll need to be completing. And they use that same trend all the way through in the next lab. It's called the customer master form, but the caption is customer view and update form. And the same thing for lab 2 and lab 3, the same mindset. I think that's all I wanted to say. Let me just show you what you're going to be working with. So let's go in and look at Module 7. And there are no extra files here, nothing to import. We're going to be working with what we have. Content. We're not adding any new tables. I'm going to close that up just so we can see everything. We're not adding any new queries, I don't think. Let's see. I forget sometimes because this has gotten to be so large. So we're only going to be working with forms, no reports. So it's the account master form, but when you open it, you're going to see it says account view and update form. There you go. So you're going to create this field. I'm going to show it to you in design view. It's just important that you follow the directions here. So let me just take a look at this. So let's just look at it first. So you have an account name to find, and it has a list of all of the accounts, and they're in alphabetical order. You can see they're in alphabetical order, and I'm just going to choose one. This one is called Cotter Plastics, and then all the information for Cotter Plastics will populate down here, including the account manager number. And I can choose another one, or I can go back to the first one, and all of the data changes based on the name to find, the name that you find. And you want to leave this name to find because it becomes part of a macro. I'll show you that. These fields you already have in the table, so we won't be adding any new fields to the table. You will be having a calculated field, and you're going to add these buttons. So let me go back to the top. This is a next record button, so it'll step you through. You see when I hit next record, these change. It'll go back to previous. You can delete a record. Be careful with that. Once it's gone, it's gone. You can add a record. It'll take you to the bottom of the list so that you can add a record. Or you can close the form. These are called action buttons or command buttons. Alright, let's look at this in design view. Alright, so this name to find, they're going to step you through this. Do not change this title because we're using it in a macro. And a macro is just a set of instructions that you program in to perform a bigger task. So it's going to be very important that you follow these exactly. You want to follow every step exactly. Alright, let's look at this in, alright, so in design view you have this name defined, and I'm going to show you the property sheet. At this point I use everything in the property sheet. So in this control right here, for this control, they have you add this. When you create it, it's going to create this label with this ampersand in front of it. It's part of the language that you need to create the macro. And there's going to be an event with not with the label, but only with the control. So let's click on the control. Alright, this is the control. So the control has an event with it. It has an embedded macro, and it says after you update it. So that means after you select, it's going to follow this macro. And this is the macro. It says when it's selected, in plain English, this is what it says. When I choose the account number, make what's on the screen the active control. So that's what's going to happen. And so when I choose, so let's go back to that. When I choose this, then the active control lines up with the name I found. That's what that means. All right, let's go back to design view. And all of these you are familiar with now. These are labels that you can see through and controls you cannot see through. They always have the white background. These buttons each have a macro. Let's look at those. You won't have to create these. These are all already built inside. In fact, you don't have to do anything to any of them. You don't have to edit any of the macros except for the add record macro, because you will want it to indicate where you want the cursor to start so you can insert a record. But anyway, we'll just look at the macro. But you want once you put in the next record button, it'll automatically have this macro built for you. So it says on an error, go to next, but otherwise go to the record, go to record, and the record is next. And then if there's an error, here's the message box, and it beeps if there's an error. And that's it. You don't have to know that because it's automatically built into the macro. But the add record macro, you will have to edit. So for the go to, you want to tell it to go to the account number. You want the cursor, that tells it where you want the cursor to go so you can start entering the new record or the new account. Okay, so that means here you have to name when you first get account number, it's just going to say account number just like the control source does, but you have to name it with the underscore, because in a macro we use underscores between to indicate spaces. We don't use any spaces. It indicates the end of a command. So you're going to have to add an underscore in there so that the macro that you create for the add record button works. Let me show you that macro again so you see. And if we look at the macro, you see it needs to go to account number. You see that underscore? It's important that you do that. And you'll do that in as was with the case with module 6. Module 7, every database is exactly the same. Exactly the same. So you're going to follow these same steps all the way through. And that's all you're going to do for these. It looks like it's complex, but it's really not. You follow the steps. You'll be using the property sheet quite a bit. You will have to line these up. Let me show you how easy these are. You can just select. I'm just dragging across and select all of them at one time. If I want to move them down one space, I just use the arrow key to move them down, or I can move them up. I can move them to the right, or I can move them to the left. And you can do the same thing here. Select a bunch at one time, or you can select everything at one time. It's very nice little features. I love using the design view. As I said, you have the property sheet most of the time. There's no subforms with this. You are going to create a manager workshop data form. It is tricky, but you just follow the directions. You'll be okay. So I'm going to close this and not make any changes. Alright, let's look at the manager workshop data form. They show you what it looks like on AC363. You don't actually start building it until you get to, so I can find the page, AC393. At the bottom of AC393, after you create your query, that query is going to be it's going to be called managers and workshop offerings. I closed that. Let's open that up. Manager and workshop offerings right here. And you're going to create that, and it's going to create, let me just I can't open it now because I have this open, but it's going to create a list. You're going to use that to build this data sheet and the charts, because you're going to calculate remaining hours that are left. So you're going to calculate the hours remaining by subtracting the hours spent from the total hours. Alright, so this is the data sheet. It is grouped by account manager, and therefore, and if you just cycle through, you see it cycles through all four of them, and then within each one you have records. It'll just go up and down the list, just as they have for everything else. And it has, we call this a multi-tab report. There are 2 tabs. You can put many more, but alright, so this is the data sheet, this is the chart, and you will work through this chart. They walk you through making the selections. This is all wizard driven. You won't have to drag and drop or do anything to make the chart. It's wizard driven. I'm looking, actually when you make the chart, you'll start that on AC 400, at the bottom of AC 400. It'll step you through a little wizard, a chart wizard, and it'll show you how to set it up. You're going to do a pie chart, and then once you get it done, it's going to look flat. Even though you make a choice to make it 3D, it's going to look flat while you're building it, but once you complete it, it's going to look 3D just like this one does. It's going to give you just a dummy chart with no numbers in it, and you're going to have to insert the numbers. So you're going to modify the chart. It has a built-in spreadsheet with it, and you will modify some of those figures, and you'll change how the legend's done. And believe it or not, that's it. That's all there is to it. So this is hours spent by workshop offering for this account manager, and the hours remaining by workshop code. So it shows you that this Heidi has spent most of her time here on workshop 8, and she still has quite a bit left there. She hadn't spent any time here on workshop 3, but she does have some to do here based on the code. So if we go through, you'll see the chart changes depending on who the account manager is. And this account manager hadn't begun any work yet. If you remember the last time, he didn't have any clients yet or any accounts yet. Okay? Alright, so we're going to close this. And it sounds like it's a little, it takes quite a few steps, but basically these are the only 2 forms you will be creating. So let's take a look at the first lab. It'll be very similar. You're going to do the same things that you did for Pratt last. Let's look for horticulture for you. You're going to create a query called sales reps and customers, and you're going to report. You're going to create the customer. Is that right? Oh no, I knew that wasn't right. Wait a minute. It just didn't look right, people. You're going to create the customer master form. You're going to have the sub form, and you're going to create the data form, and it's going to be supported by the sales rep. Oh, it's going to be supported by the sales rep and open orders query. So let's take a look at those. So you won't be adding any new tables. We're going to close that. You're going to create these queries. This query, it's very simple. It'll have you walk through the whole process. Here's the master form, but again, it's going to have a caption of customer view and update form. And here you have the same name to find. You go down the list. It has the same kind of macro. When I choose up here, it's going to update the content down here to match the name I chose at the top. This is usually where the error occurs, and it always has to do with not naming this field properly. Alright, so let's go to the beginning. The next record button works the same. You'll want to test all of these when you get them done. And the delete record, I'm not going to do it. The add record works the same way. See the cursors right there in the customer number, and that's the way it should be. And we're not going to do that. We're going to go to the beginning. You have, oh, I see these fields need to be expanded. Let's do that while we're in design view. I know you guys think I do this on purpose, but I don't. I'm going to do this one. It's not quite wide enough to see code. This one I'm going to expand it a little bit. And this one just enough so we can see paid. Right now the D is, I just like for it to look neat and be readable. And if I don't do it, then you might not do it. So let's take a look and see how that looks. That looks so much better. So much better. I might move these fields over just a little bit. They seem like they're squeezing that a little bit. This is just gives you an idea of the latitude you have with this. Alright, I moved those over a little bit. Now I'm going to move these over, and you know, I'll align them. I'll show you. They teach you really nice tools on how to align. And you know what, I'm just going to move these willy-nilly so I can show you that right quick. Alright, so now I'm going to select these. I'm holding the control key to select them, and I want to arrange them, and I want to align them to the left. And now I want to move them over just a little bit, and I want to select these. I'm using the control key to select them. You see they're kind of snaky, they're not aligned. I want to align them to the left, and now they'll be nice and neat. So let's take a look at that. Looks so much better, so much better. Okay. Alright, so these work exactly the same way. We can go and look in the design view and look at the property sheet and the macro, but it works exactly the same way. It's exactly like the other one. This one, we changed this so that we added in the name the underscore, so we can use it in the add record macro, and that's all there is to it. There's nothing else there. This is very similar to the other master form that you created in let me save this, the master form you created for Fratlast. Alright, let's look at the data. This is a multi-tab form, and it has a subform, and it's this one right here, open orders and sales rep subform. You see, I named it open orders and sales rep subform. And you have the data sheet, and then on this tab you have a bar chart, and it's just a different sum based on each customer for this sales rep number. It'll be very important, as was with the last chapter, that all of the relationships are maintained properly maintained. But if you did them in chapter 6, you'll see they were sustained here. Okay, let's enable the content. No new tables. We do have a couple of well, we have one query, the vendors and orders query. We have the item master form. I think actually we have the vendor master form. Let me look. Yeah, the vendor master form. We've created so many forms now. Oh, actually, no, it is the item master form. Let me look. Yeah, this is it. And it says item view and update form. And you see you have the same exact thing. Nothing new here. Same exact system. Same, very same thing. You're going to do an inventory value, but you got the same buttons. So let's look at this in design view for just a second. And you got to do a calculation here. You're going to take the on hand. Oh, didn't mean to move that. Let's look at it. And let's look at the macro. I mean at the calculation. On hand times wholesale cost. That gives you the value of the inventory on hand. And there's nothing new here. You had to name the name to find, and then if we go to the event, it has the same updated, same macro. When I enter the item number, make that the active control. So nothing new here. So nothing works any differently than it has. If we look at this in a regular view, let me just this a little smaller. When I choose the name to find, the record updates down here at the bottom. Or I can use these buttons. Or I can close the form. No. Okay, so let's look at the vendor orders data form. It is a multi-tab form, and it's just like the others, except this has 2 data sheets in it, no chart. It's a little bit easier than the others. You're going to base these on the queries, the items on order, and the items in stock. Okay, so you got 2 subforms here that you created for this one. All right, let's take a look at the last one. Okay. All right, so this one I did a little bit differently. You see, instead of the words, I used the picture buttons. You can do whatever you like. Next, previous, add, delete, or close form. These work exactly the same way. Nothing different. Don't overcomplicate it. I just made this one pink because I was feeling pink that day. You're going to have a calculated field just like you have. Just this one is exactly like Pratt Last. Exactly in every way. Except that I use different style of button. And you'll see those button options. I think even the data sheet is the same. You have, the multi-tab form is the same. You have a data sheet and you have a charts. Exactly the same. Don't make it harder than it is. Just remember that. Okay, that's it, folks. Don't forget, the exam is not going to be on Sunday. You have to finish it Thursday. And I want you to enjoy your spring break. If you just get bored to tears, go ahead and read Module 8. It's a very fun module. I know I say that about everyone, but it's really fun. Okay, hope everything's going well. If you need anything, reach out. Bye.